Now, in the present day, a tropical disturbance has rapidly strengthened into a Category 2 hurricane within just 24 hours. This makes it clear that the storm is no joke. The story begins with a narrator explaining that since 1980, Atlantic hurricanes have become far more intense, frequent, and longer-lasting, rising by nearly 250%. While strong winds and heavy rainfall are dangerous on their own, the biggest threat usually comes from the storm surge, as it begins closing in on landfall near Annieville. The tension rises immediately as we're taken back to 2 hours and 14 minutes before impact in Annieville, South Carolina. We're first introduced to Dakota, who is on the phone discussing her plan to head out and buy some groceries. The person she's speaking with is clearly worried about the worsening weather, but Dakota brushes it off and sticks to her plan. As she makes her way outside, the atmosphere feels uneasy, and her anxiety starts to build. Out of nowhere, she bumps into an older man who warns her that she shouldn't be out in such dangerous conditions, especially with the storm approaching. Despite his concern, she insists she needs supplies and continues on, before eventually returning to her apartment. Not far from there, we meet Lisa Fields, a pregnant woman leaving a facility as she prepares to head home. Nearby, a man named Bob is busy refueling his truck despite the heavy rain. Lisa questions why he's still working in such conditions, and he explains that his boss wants one last delivery done before he can take a break, promising extra pay for the overtime. As Lisa continues her journey home, she calls her mother, who wastes no time expressing her frustration about Lisa's life choices, especially leaving home for a man who ultimately abandoned her. But beyond that, her mother is deeply concerned about the incoming storm. She warns Lisa that authorities have already shut down the interstate due to flooding and urges her to find higher ground immediately, stressing that time is running out. The scene then shifts to a group of siblings enjoying themselves despite the storm. Ron plays a prank by pretending to drown after diving into the river, causing panic among the others. Just when things start to get serious, he suddenly reappears, revealing it was all a joke. After that, he heads over to his younger siblings, Dee and Will, encouraging Will to take his turn. However, just as Will is about to dive in, Mr. Olson arrives and quickly shuts everything down. He warns them about the dangers lurking in the swamp, including snakes, and insists they leave immediately, even though Dee had been keeping watch. At the same time, we're introduced to Dr. Dale Edwards, who is closely monitoring the storm's development. As he analyzes the data, a colleague named Greg interrupts him. After reviewing the findings together, Greg makes a chilling statement. If there were ever such a thing as a Category 6 hurricane, this storm would qualify. In his words, what's approaching isn't just a storm, it's a monster. Concerned, Edwards immediately reaches out to his niece, Dakota. He asks if she has any plans to evacuate or at least move to higher ground. When it becomes clear she hasn't made any real preparations, he offers to personally come get her out of the city. At first, Dakota refuses, brushing off the danger despite his warnings. But Edwards doesn't back down, and eventually, she reluctantly agrees to let him pick her up. Back with Lisa, the situation is getting worse. She's desperately searching for a safe place, but every building she comes across is locked. In the middle of this, her mother calls again, but the connection suddenly drops. Almost immediately, the environment takes a terrifying turn. Roofs begin to rip off buildings, and water barriers start collapsing under pressure. Within moments, massive waves of floodwater rush through the city. As Lisa tries to escape, she runs into Bob, who urgently tells her to turn around. She listens, but things spiral out of control quickly. Elsewhere, Ron and his siblings are now in Mr. Olson's car as he drives them home. Once they arrive and settle in, Dee becomes curious about how safe the house really is. She asks about the windows, wondering if they can withstand the force of the storm. Mr. Olson confidently reassures her, explaining that the house is fitted with reinforced glass, waterproof wiring, and even a backup generator, precautions he personally put in place. Afterward, he heads down to the basement, where his wife is already making preparations. Bob attempts to use his truck to block the incoming flood, but Lisa ends up getting stuck. At the same time, Dakota's home is slammed by rising water, just like many others in the area. Back at Mr. Olson's house, Ron and the others notice water building up behind them and try to warn him. But he remains overly confident in his reinforced glass, and the windows give way. Lisa is still trapped and struggles to find a way out, while Bob's oil truck is completely destroyed by the force of the flood. The impact splits the tank open, causing oil to spill into the water. And just when things couldn't get worse, something moves beneath the surface, a shark. In a desperate moment, Lisa screams for help, and luckily, a passerby named Scott hears her. He rushes in to help but realizes she's pinned inside her car by heavy branches. He calls out to his partner Jimmy, asking him to bring a cutter to free her. But before Jimmy can make it back, he suddenly vanishes. Sensing something is wrong, Scott goes to check on him, only to discover Jimmy being attacked by a shark. Dakota spots the danger and tries to warn everyone, but it's already too late. The shark turns its attention to Bob, killing him instantly. Scott also becomes a victim right in front of Lisa, leaving her completely helpless. Meanwhile, Dr. Edwards and his team are still on the move, trying to reach Dakota. But as they get closer, they realize the situation is far worse than expected. Great white sharks are now roaming through the flooded streets, turning the rescue mission into something even more dangerous. Meanwhile, Mr. Olson and his wife decide to move into a smaller nearby structure, unaware of what's lurking in the water. Ron and the others spot the shark, but there's no time to react. Rachel suddenly feels something beneath her, and within seconds, the attack begins. She doesn't survive, while Mr. Olson desperately fights to stay alive. He manages to reach his vehicle, thinking he's safe, but the nightmare isn't over. Another shark strikes, proving that the danger is far from finished. Back with Lisa, she desperately pleads with Dakota for help, revealing that she's pregnant and running out of options. Dakota, clearly overwhelmed, hesitates at first, unsure of what she can even do in a situation like this. But after a moment, she makes up her mind and decides to help. She quickly moves into action, but things almost go wrong immediately as she slips from the rooftop and nearly falls. Somehow, she manages to recover and pull herself back up. Determined, Dakota starts making her way across nearby structures, carefully moving from one building to another while the sharks continue circling below. When she finally reaches Lisa, she wastes no time. She begins cutting away the branches trapping her inside the car, and after a tense struggle, she successfully frees her and helps her to safety. At the same time, Lisa begins to feel the pressure of her pregnancy. Her water is close to breaking. Dakota quickly climbs to the roof to set up a distress signal, hoping someone will spot them. When she returns, Lisa asks her to check if she's ready to deliver. Dakota is shocked but does as she's told, only to realize the baby is already starting to come, though not enough for a safe delivery yet. Back at Mr. Olson's house, the water level keeps rising, and the biggest concern is no longer the flood, but the sharks. In an attempt to keep them out, Dee tries to secure one of the doors. But just as she's doing that, their worst fear becomes reality. A shark forces its way inside while she's still above the water level, and just as she starts to lose her grip, Ron rushes in just in time to pull her back to safety. Seeing how bad things are getting, Ron comes up with a risky escape plan. His siblings aren't convinced, but with no better options, they agree to go along with it. Later that night, Lisa's condition worsens as she goes into full labor. She tries her best to hold on, hoping rescue will arrive in time. Dakota then comes up with an idea, creating vibrations in the water to scare the sharks away, giving them a chance to escape. Elsewhere, Dr. Edwards and his crew shift their focus to rescuing as many people as possible, knowing they might be the only help left. Back with the kids, just as they're preparing to act on their plan, Mr. Olson suddenly reappears, alive but badly injured. Escape. Meanwhile, tension explodes between Ron and Mr. Olson when Ron accuses him of trying to abandon them earlier. Mr. Olson denies it, but his aggressive response only makes things worse. The argument turns physical, and in the chaos, Mr. Olson is pushed into the water, where he is immediately attacked by a shark. Using the distraction, Ron heads into the basement to gather supplies and anything that can be used as a weapon. But on his way out, he gets stuck and comes face to face with a shark. In a narrow escape, he manages to break free just in time. Back with Lisa and Dakota, the water has now flooded into the bedroom. Dakota attempts to use the vibration method again, swimming out to activate it, but a shark quickly destroys the device. She tries to swim back, only to find herself surrounded. After a tense moment, the sharks scatter, giving her just enough time to reach a nearby boat. Dr. Edwards is now closing in on Annieville, fully aware of the deadly threat waiting in the water. Inside Dakota's house, Lisa panics as the structure begins to give way. With no time left, she decides to deliver the baby right there. But just as she's about to, the building collapses. She's forced into the water, where she somehow manages to give birth, but the blood quickly attracts more sharks. Dakota rushes to her aid as Lisa prepares to defend herself. When a shark lunges, Lisa manages to fight back and injure it. As she reaches for her baby, another shark sneaks up behind her, but Dakota takes it out with a well-placed shot. Back on the water, Lisa finally reaches Dakota, but just as they try to escape, a shark attacks their boat. At that critical moment, Dr. Edwards and his team arrive to help, but even then, they're quickly overwhelmed as more sharks close in. Just when it seems like there's no way out, a massive great white suddenly appears and attacks the other sharks, giving them a brief window to escape. Elsewhere, Ron and his siblings attempt to lure the sharks into a trap using a homemade bomb, but their first attempt fails. They try again by creating vibrations, but Ron gets snagged on a hook in the process. Thankfully, he frees himself just in time before a shark can strike. At the same time, Ron and his siblings finally succeed in their plan, using their bomb to eliminate the shark inside the house. With the path finally clear, Dakota and Lisa are rescued by Dr. Edwards and his crew, who take them to a safer location.